ladies and gentlemen, the Beatles.
Everyone had their favorite Beatle. Mine was Paul, the cute one, the nice one. I wasn't a fanatic. I was afflicted with adult onset of Beatlemania, and I still like McCartney, which has made me an outcast among intellectuals who much prefer the darker poetry of John Lennon. When word came to the station that there was an outside chance of me getting an interview with McCartney, I lunged at the opportunity. But first, he had to meet my wife and me just to make sure. McCartney doesn't do many television interviews, and he wanted to check us out. 3 weeks ago, we flew to Orlando and met Paul McCartney at the Citrus Bowl before his concert. We apparently passed his test. McCartney's reputation as the nice one is well earned. I began the interview by telling him my wife's impressions of meeting him in Orlando.
I said, "How you feeling?" She said, "You know, it's like meeting an old friend that we haven't seen for a long time." Do you know you have that effect on people?
No, I hope I have that effect on people. I like to be able to do that, you know. I'm from good people in Liverpool, who that was kind of how you had to be, you know. So it's always kind of stuck with me. I blame them for it. You know, my dad had, there were 7 kids in his family. So when they married and bred, we had quite a big sort of gang, you know. So you just had to get on. You couldn't go off in a corner and be moody. I do feel a lot in common with the people, particularly, say, round about your age, because we've grown through all this stuff. You know, we can listen to Clinton saying he didn't inhale, and we go, and we kind of know what we're thinking. You know, you don't have to say much. So I suppose I do have a lot in common with people, and I like it that way. You know, I've tried that being distant thing, you know, that some stars get. It's not very nice. It's not a good quality of life. I know how they get into it too. You start being a little moody, so you just keep them out the way. So, okay, I'm going to be doing, get the bodyguards around you. But I mean, who wants to live like that? You know, I've kind of come through all of that and decided it was better, the old way of just sort of, hey, how you doing, man? What's happening? You know, what do you do for a hobby then? And you start talking to people. You find out much more than sort of sitting all moody in a corner like, I'm a star. You know, who needs it?
McCartney's concert begins with graphic pictures of animals being tortured and tested and hunted and slaughtered. A vegetarian for 20 years, McCartney fights for animal rights and endorses groups ranging from Greenpeace to PETA, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, a group opposed to vivisection, testing of laboratory animals.
But I think there's some interesting points. You know, I think there's only one animal on this planet who's going to blow this planet up. And we all know who he is, you know. It ain't no rabbit or sheep anywhere. It's going to be us. And I think we can learn from these species. I've got this feeling like, why are they there? You know, what are they doing there? Do we need to just decimate them and destroy them all? Or is there some kind of reason? And if you watch some of these wildlife programs, you'll see them being better parents than many of us.
That is fun to watch.
And you know, you sort of think, God, look at the way. I mean, I was watching something about gorillas this morning, and you see them, and they kind of, you see that? And they're kind of touching each other, and one of them sort of kissed its hand, and you think, my God, we've forgotten this.
And we do news stories about the work of the People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, and there's a huge research complex here, medical research complex, and they're concerned about some of those views. Sure. What if the AIDS cure is in the next rabbit that you experiment with?
That's right. Well, there's got to be a line. You've got to draw a line. You know, people say to me, if one of your kids had a life-threatening disease and they had to experiment on rabbits, then it's the kid that it gets saved and the rabbit's got to go. In that you know, point, I'm certainly not that pro-rabbit.
Mm-hmm. Can you, as a musician, sell these important issues that you're talking about? Is that possible?
Well, you know, you can try. This is the thing. There's no guarantees that people are going to listen to you. Well, they're going to listen to you pretty much if they've got the telly turned on, but there's no guarantee they're going to agree with you. But I don't mind that. I'm not looking for kind of people to agree with what I'm saying. I'm just creating a debate.
Back a long time ago, when music was 1-4-5 progression, 12 bars of blues or rock and roll, CFG kind of stuff, somewhere along the line, you gave yourself permission to create a new form that no one else has ever done. Where did that permission come from to change what everyone had relied on?
My dad.
Tell me.
I'd always been interested in all kinds of music, and my dad was a sort of jazz player, played by ear, but he used to play Chicago, Chicago, all this stuff, you know. And his dad had said to him, oh, that's tin can music. His dad, who was like in an old brass band, he used to play a big E-flat bass with a boom, 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 boom. And he used to say, oh, that's tin can music. So when I was growing up, he kind of understood that I was into rock and roll, and he didn't call it tin can music. He sort of understood what I was going through. But I picked up a lot of musicality from him. And I was a great lover in the early days of people like Peggy Lee. You know, so before rock and roll came along, there was Peggy Lee. And I was listening to her, so on one of the early Beatle albums, I do Till There Was You, which is actually a song from a musical, The Music Man. I didn't know that. I just knew it was sort of some nice song that Peggy sang. So when I sat down to write something like Yesterday, I think my whole thing had been formed by that stuff and rock and roll. So one day I just dreamed yesterday. I woke up one morning, I had this little tune in my head, just popped out. So I think it was the love of all kinds of music rather than, you know, people think the Beatles, it was just rock and roll. But I mean, John had a lot of that too. One of his favorite songs was Little White Lies. And Girl of My Dreams, I Love You. You know, so there was this little sort of background to all of this that we left behind and became a rock and roll group. But we never really left it behind. It was always just there in the background.
And it was fabulous.
I still love it.
Well, my wife wants to say to you, come over to the house anytime. That's how close she feels to you. You can drop over, have some vegetable potato chips or whatever, and enjoy yourself. I hope you have a great time on your tour, and it's just been a pleasure meeting you.
Thanks a lot, mate.
Good.
Very
Thank you.
nice. Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
And thanks to your wife.